I've been a fan of your channel for a short time, but I love your videos. It is a very minor horror story, especially compared to a lot of the other stories on your channel, but I thought I'd submit it anyway. I swear to God, if this story has like an incel or someone getting shot in the head, at this point I won't be surprised because like seriously, that happens every time you guys tell me that's a minor horror story. I am DMing a homebrew D&D campaign for friends who are all new players, and they are fighting their way through a vampire's castle, taking on numerous mini-bosses. One of the mini-bosses was a homebrew monster I called the Grave Chill Knight, an undead skeleton with a great axe and a few ice spells. He wasn't the problem, nor was the location of the encounter an ice-covered armory where everyone had to move at half speed or run the risk of slipping. What the problem was the mini layer action I had included. When I planned the encounter, the players would have to make a con saving throw or take 2d6 cold damage. Yes, everything was very on theme for this encounter. The problem was, when it came to playing this encounter, I didn't look at my notes again, misremembered, and increased the cold damage to 3d6 per layer action. These guys were level 6 and included several squishy casters, and the 3d6 cold damage soon stacked up. At one point, they did talk about trying to run away. I wasn't going to force them to stay and fight because the cold damage and the darn slippery floor. To their credit, they stuck it out and defeated the mini-boss without anyone actually dying or even being knocked unconscious. Bro, if no one even got knocked unconscious, what's the problem?
Deathwing, destroyer of worlds. Come, brothers. Come. This fight is going to be the most difficult of our lives. Prepare for battle! Ah!
1 hour later.
Deathwing has at last been defeated. A great personal cut. Actually, dude, yeah, we're good. Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I thought that, like, I was good and, like, everyone else was in a lot of pain, but, like, you're good, too? I mean, Georgie got some paper cuts. A paper cut on my head! Ah! But other than that, none of us were even injured enough to, like, lose consciousness. We are inexplicably completely okay. Sweet, yeah. That was a really hard fight.
Maybe I'm just a freak. My players just kind of expect to be knocked unconscious during combat. Between that session and the next, I checked my notes and saw my mistake. I felt bad and apologized to my players. There were no hard feelings. Moral of the story, always check your notes. Before every session, I reread stat blocks. Look, the shock of realizing, oh, my monster can do that? Yeah, that's really fun. But the shock of accidentally killing a player character because you didn't really understand what the ability does, less fun. Hey Crispy, so this story is kind of mellow and quite sad. Unlike the real horrors you have the pleasure/displeasure of reading on your channel. Wait. You think my normal horror stories aren't sad? Come on, y'all give me straight Preamble aside, it's time for context. The story starts a couple years ago. I had been a forever dungeon master for my group of friends at the time, and we had a new addition to our group, this dude who was also a D&D fanatic like me. I kept running games as I usually did, and he was a semi-decent player. Kept begging me for combat even when I had specifically stated I run pretty combat-light games throughout 2 campaigns, didn't really engage in meaningful roleplay, and constantly spoke out of character. Love how you're doing this like a report card. Barely engaged in the assignment and didn't understand the purpose. C-. However, it still wasn't enough to bother me or any of the other players to an extreme extent. Time moves on, and both those campaigns fizzle out because I have this very bad habit of front-loading campaigns with amazing, thoroughly thought-out, planned first sessions, but just don't have any energy to keep that momentum going. It's unfortunate, but I try to roll with my own failures, probably going to have to run way smaller in scope campaigns rather than trying to recreate insert epic fantasy movies in D&D all the damn time. You don't even need to stop making epic campaigns. Most of the movies you like are 2 hours long, alright? Your campaign doesn't need to be 2,000 hours long. Run shorter campaigns. If it's failed twice, that's starting to turn into a pattern. However, once my second campaign was as good as done, he piped up saying he wanted to DM the next campaign, and with a poll cast between me and him, he was elected to be the DM of the next campaign. I was fine with this if it weren't for his weird attitude in regards to constantly one-upping me. If there was something cool someone referenced that had occurred primarily in my well-regarded first sessions, he would instantly be defensive, claiming he would do better in his campaign, which I just thought was friendly competition. Really one-sided Shadow versus Sonic BS, what have you. Sonic, you will never defeat me. You are a beta male, and your Dungeons & Dragons campaigns suck! Shadow, what are you Hey, get back here! Session time rolls around, and it's okay. Each session has a weird, mandatory combat session that lasts around 2 to 4 hours for some reason, as inspirations are like super on the nose, which again, I don't mind. I don't expect them to be Matt Mercer or anything. Nobody did, but it just feels low effort when things feel directly ripped from other works. Marvel, DC, and Dude especially. And this just keeps going. Each session boiled down to this weird formula of meet character, our characters do something, contrive consequence for that action, combat, session ends with our characters half dead, traveling to the next area. To his credit, there were definitely standout moments, which ironically weren't combat related at all, such as dancing with this pirate queen to gain the trust of her crew, and the death of one of the player characters was handled super well, until the guy was brought back through some weird contrived resurrection devices. Regardless, I got so tired of this formula as interest from everyone, including the DM, started to peter out, so I get on call explaining the issues I have with the campaign after discussing it with another player character who was having similar problems to me. He was understanding for the most part, though half the call was taken up trying to soothe his ego with each blow we dealt to him.
And now that my DMPC's personal 4-hour threesome has come to an end, we are going to end today's session. So what you guys think? Well, I mean, the idea was interesting, but I think we could... Oh. So you hated it and never want me a DM again, huh? No, I really liked the concept, and, like, the world building is really good. You know, in terms of just, like, what we as the... Oh, so... You think I'm a garbage dungeon master who deserves to die, right? No. I really had fun, and I enjoyed it. Oh, I just really appreciate your feedback.
So the next day arrives. I'm super excited after being reassured that he was taking everything into account, only to witness that nothing changed. Like at all. 1. NPCs remained the same, the witty, snarky, cool guys. 2. Locations didn't have a drop of personality. 3. Character backstories were taking what felt like years to explore, despite my player character literally being in her hometown. 4. Combat was monotonous and just not engaging. Couple more sessions in without changing, and eventually the campaign just kind of dies. Work and school commitments from my end make it difficult for me to show up, and the others probably stopped caring a long time ago since I was the only one following up with the DM on whether or not there was even going to be a session that week. As we reach the end, I don't think this dude was like a terrible person, just someone who had a very wounded ego for some reason and treated D&D as a vessel to acquire praise, hence his reliance on outside media and formulas to just make up most of his game world. Playing it safe, some would say. I think also generally, fellas, we don't gotta run 15-year-long campaigns, even if it lasts a month, or even if it's just gonna be a really good one-shot. I think short stuff can be on par, or even better than some of the longest campaigns ever. Have a good day, all of you. I think I could have spoken more about the issues I had with DM and the other players outside the game, but that would greatly extend the length, and would generally not be relevant. When I acquire another D&D group or friends that want to play D&D, I hope I'll get to send a story of a successful campaign one day. See ya. I agree that short campaigns are greatly undervalued in the D&D community, especially. They are a great way to run games, especially if you are super busy and unable to schedule. But I think the main crux of this problem is both comparing yourself to other DMs and being able to take criticism. Look, I get it. Your campaign is your baby. Hearing criticism of your baby can suck, but it is necessary. I'm not trying to say all criticism is a knock it out of the park, great piece of feedback. Oftentimes, criticism sucks, and sometimes it's taken out of context, especially at a D&D game where there's a lot of stuff going on for the Dungeon Master. However, what makes this really annoying is that this DM was perfectly ready and willing to criticize the writer and to compare to their campaign. No matter what, I don't think a D&D campaign should be used as a dick measuring contest. It's a good way to make sure that your campaign just feels utterly joyless. I've got a big new campaign, but I completely forgot the tokens. I've been using generic Kobold number 2 for months. I think my players are gonna start getting bored soon. Thank God, though, for CzePeku tokens. This week's videos are sponsored by CzePeku tokens. This past year, I swapped my entire token library to use CzePeku tokens in my D&D games, and I could not be happier. Not only is the art absolutely gorgeous and so customizable, but also CzePeku updates their token website constantly. Seriously, I'll finish designing my D&D session for that week, and then suddenly a couple days later, they've got 5 to 10 new tokens with tons of customization features per token. Yes, CzePeku are typically known for their super inexpensive and expansive map library, but slowly, CzePeku tokens is becoming just as good for me, if not even better. If you guys are interested, you can head down into the description down below or to the pinned comment where you can click buy a link so that you can grab CzePeku tokens or CzePeku maps on their Patreon. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Thank you so much to CzePeku for sponsoring today's episode. And without further ado, I'm going to turn back into an animated rat so that we can get back to the video. I played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, and yet I've never been able to see a full campaign to completion. The unfortunate truth is, I have a habit of making bad friends. Like, really, really bad friends. I have several friends that I've been close to for an incredibly long time. Some well over a decade, but bad apples always land in the barrel at some point. Is that a phrase? I swear, you guys are making this up to make me look stupid. So this campaign was being DM'd by my longtime best friend. She's an incredible storyteller, an expert DM, and extremely detailed in her planning, and makes great effort to be sure every single player gets their time in the spotlight and sees good development in their personal stories. 10 out of 10, I got no notes. She had made some friends from college that were interested in joining a campaign. The notable one being a mage that we'll call Alice, and a mutual friend we had at the time from work. We'll call this person Kate. I couldn't think of gender-neutral names for either of them. We're just gonna go with it, okay? The campaign started out just fine. We had one problem player at the beginning that ended up leaving just due to their own bit of drama between them and Kate, which is foreshadowing. But it went on well, with things going relatively smoothly. I was becoming very close with Kate, eventually living together and getting a shared apartment. This feels worth noting, but I won't go into specifics due to it being extremely upsetting to relay and will undoubtedly be upsetting for others to hear. But just know her behavior outside the campaign was downright awful and completely ruined my life at the time and upended my whole everything. Her behavior within the game was also bad and led to its ultimate end, but her behavior outside of it was much, much worse. Like, this woman was a straight up super villain. Oh, also she was a bit of a problem player. Crazy sentence. Unfortunately, Kate has a habit of bringing outside drama into the game. Also, Kate was the type of player to min-max and try to force the DM's hand in some things. Like, she decided it was super important for her character story to obtain the deck of many things, and was expecting it to happen before we even reached level 8? Whatever, if anything, it made combat easier with her completely whack stats. Not entirely relevant to the central story here, but I'm just trying to paint a picture of this type of person. Dude, why would you want the deck of many things? So you can just draw Void and die?
What that
As a DM, I'm tempted to just let you. Outside the game, Kate decides she had some kind of weird vendetta against Alice. I can't even remember what it was about, just that she started to randomly despise them. I have a theory that being Kate wanted to turn me against every single person in my life, starting with the mutual friend that introduced us, that eventually left the game as well due to a falling out of her orchestration. Alice was apparently just next on the chopping block. As I remember, the situation of note that led to the entire game's dissolution, which at this point had been going on for over a year, went like this. I was running two characters at this point, one being a man-for-hire gunslinger tasked with gaining an NPC's trust to lure him back to his wealthy noble family, as he was a runaway that had joined our party. In trying to gain the NPC's trust, my gunslinger was trying to woo and romance him. We have to leave our ship, we were a pirate crew, to do some traveling on land, and with the growing party, we had limited horses. My gunslinger wanted to share a horse with the NPC, and my other character and the quartermaster were already an established couple and shared their horse. That left the third horse to be shared by Kate and Alice.
I hate you. I hate you too.
Kate was not having it. She fought the party, saying she refused to share a horse with Alice. We were all confused, as there was no in-character reason for her to be doing this. She stammered a bit and explained that her character was super upset with Alice for putting them all in danger the last session. But there was nothing to suggest a grudge from her character's behavior or their interactions from said last session. Which, being sorry, that was a really long read to essentially say, year-long campaign ends over whiny, petty horse drama. But it just goes to show, campaigns with friends won't always go down well when feelings are involved. Be careful, prioritize your safety, and just shut up and get on the damn horse. Look, the in-character explanation doesn't matter, because you already know the out-of-character explanation. For whatever reason, Kate does not like Alice. You don't need to know why, you just know it's not working out between the two of them, and that means that your D&D campaign is also probably not going to work out. You cannot play Dungeons & Dragons with people who hate each other. It's why I get nervous if I can't have a session 0 with the entire group. I want to see how people are going to interact in a casual environment. If they've never interacted before, it's going to be awkward at the table, and worst case scenario, it's going to be something like this. I know I joked about it earlier, but I do genuinely hope that whatever Alice did in your personal life, you are able to move on from it. Because, yeah, I live completely alone just because of stuff like this. I cannot handle you people sometimes. Before I start, I also posted the story to Reddit for everyone to read, so I hope this doesn't violate some rule I missed about sending something from Reddit. If so, I'm sorry about that. It doesn't, by the way. It all started a while back on WhatsApp. It's a group my brother and his girlfriend have for their friends, and one person asked there if anyone wants to play some Dungeons & Dragons. They want to try DMing for the first time. I jumped on the opportunity because I haven't played as a player in a while. Had I asked my brother about this DM though, I probably would not have done this. It started quite normally. I was asked to join a Discord server and to make a character. Immediately, I went to a room called Questions for the Dungeon Master, and I just asked for the setting and anything else I could think of. Their response? There's a church. It's bad. Everybody's racist. You don't need more. That was strange. Now, what are you talking about? That's like all the information someone could possibly need to make a D&D character. Racism, baby! But okay, I could work with it. I asked the Dungeon Master if I could use one of my pre-mades, a paladin who worked for a church, who was abused and assaulted by some priests, then ran away to make a deal with the devil. Basically, paladin warlock multi-class. I know they have a bad reputation, but believe me, this guy was far from combat-oriented since we started level 2. It was possible from the start. He said it was okay, then I asked about session 0, and he responded, I and my closest friend have already had it. Everyone else, tough luck. Which was another huge red flag, but okay, I'm deep enough to see where this is going to go. Technically, they had session 0, so no murder. But you need to include everybody.
Aww.
I was then asked to re-roll all my stats since the DM didn't trust me. Okay, I get it. I rolled with the server bot and rolled quite well. Basically all 12, 13, 14, or 15. The Dungeon Master immediately told me they didn't like my stats and had me lower them, so I had some below 10. Mind you, they enforced 46 drop the lowest, which statistically makes it really unlikely you're gonna roll below a 10.
One eternity later.
Oh, thank God, I finally did it. Alright, it took me so many rolls, but I finally rolled below a 10 on 46 drop the lowest. Bro, why would you enforce that?
Okay, now I was just curious to see where this hole goes, so I lowered my stats and continued. Now, the last bit of conversation. I made the character fit the setting description I was given and sent to the Dungeon Master. After a day of not communicating, they went off like a ballistic missile. They accused me of power gaming. I haven't taken any offensive spells. They were all roleplay based. Most likely it was because of just the good rolls, which I had no area of influence on that. Told me I can't have feats at level 1 because only the Dungeon Master can give out feats, even though I picked Variant Human. Once again, it was just a roleplay based feat. And worst of all, I used the church in my backstory. even though I specifically asked them if I could do that, and they said yes. They accused me of doing this behind their back in an attempt to sabotage their game.
Yeah, so the church is gonna be really important to the story of this campaign.
Oh, I can use the church in my backstory and tie it in and...
What a horrible player. Why would he do that?
And that was it. I never made it past that. I told them in the most polite way to F off. I pointed out I did everything they wanted me to do, and their behavior is not really something I expected, and then they kicked me out of the server. I am sorry for the inexperienced players that got stuck with the Dungeon Master and his friend. From what I found out, they forced them to pick other races other than humans so they could be racist towards them, ran the campaign as a damn book to boost their ego by punishing the players for doing nothing, and the players just don't know there's a better way to play the game, and that this is not normal. And of course, Dungeon Master probably just supports that way of thinking, so yeah, they're gonna go through hell for the next few months. That's it, thanks for reading this. Hope I scared you a little. As someone who has the luck of never facing this in the decade of playing, this was eye-opening. When you read these stories, it's different from actually experiencing it yourself. Yeah, thanks again and have a great day. Have a great day to you as well. And yeah, this Dungeon Master has some problems. Look, I don't want you to create some super niche, hardcore min-max build that'll crush a DM's dreams. But at the same time, if you ask for a stat distribution that's naturally going to lead to higher stats, don't be surprised when people have higher stats. I think this Dungeon Master had a preconceived view of this player because of the high stat rolls. This person's a min-maxer and they're going to ruin the game. And everything you're going to do is just going to feed into that narrative. Obviously, I'm kind of jumping into what is true dimension with that one, but it does explain the DM's behavior, and I've seen a lot of people do that. They come up with an established opinion and just don't want to shift away from it no matter how hard you try. And that kind of person is not the kind of person you want as a Dungeon Master. You need to be flexible, you need to be understanding, and this guy's neither of those things. I'm a new listener, first and foremost. I just want to say how much I love your content. I've been binging your videos while working, since I have a desk job, and they definitely help to pass the time. Thank you so much, by the way. Now, let's crack into my story. I want to start by saying I'm fairly new to D&D. I've only been in the world of TTRPGs for about a year now. I was drawn to the game because I love character creation, and D&D gave me a way to bring my favorite, intricate, well-developed characters to life. The problem, like many others, none of my close friends were interested in playing, so I had to look for a group online. As someone with extreme social anxiety, this was incredibly difficult, and it took some time to find a group that felt right. But when I finally did, I was thrilled. Everyone seemed genuinely kind and focused on having fun. The group consisted of an older gentleman, a very chill younger man, a kind weeaboo girl, and then there was Michael. Full name redacted for privacy, of course. We had a blast during our first session. The group's chemistry was great. The problem, however, came from the Dungeon Master and his weird obsession with Michael. Michael was an absolute darling, genuinely kind, open, effortless to talk to. Even though we had just met on Discord, she made... Oh, it's not a guy. Martha!
Why did you say that name?
Martha made me comfortable from the start. She was always engaging, and in session 0, her character immediately stuck to mine. I think she could tell I was nervous, so she went out of her way to help me express my thoughts and feel included. Martha and I quickly became close. We're both queer women, so we clicked immediately. But I want to clarify, this was not romantic. We were just fast friends, and I was thrilled to have someone to talk to about Dungeons & Dragons or just life. We sent each other TikToks and memes to get through our workdays, and after session, I really enjoyed chatting with her and her daughter for hours, something that's a big deal for me, considering my social anxiety makes phone calls near impossible. To this day, I consider her one of my closest friends, which is so sweet. Oh, I'm so happy. We love friendship. Our Dungeon Master, though, who initially seemed nice, was constantly hitting on Martha in private messages outside the game, which, okay, not my business technically, but here's the kicker. He was a married man living with his wife and 3 kids. Bro, what are you doing? By session 4 or 5, I had finally started opening up to the group. My character, a male half-elven druid, was developing an interesting dynamic with the younger man's character, and I was genuinely having fun, but I noticed a shift in Martha. She was muting for long periods and seemed less enthusiastic than before. This continued for a couple more sessions before I finally asked her privately if everything was okay. it very much was not. Apparently, the DM had convinced himself that he and Martha were in a relationship. Excuse me. What? What the fuck? How did this even happen? Well, I had completely missed something over the past 2 months. The Dungeon Master had suggested we all meet in person at the Renaissance Fair in Chicago. Since I live in Ohio and the other players are in different states, the only one who actually showed up was Martha. So it just ended up being her and the DM, I think, and maybe one other person. At some point during the meetup, Martha got plastered, and the DM decided that was the perfect time to make his move. Oh no.
No. Wait.
Oh no.
Wait.
I don't know the details, but I do know that he groomed her afterwards, telling her he'd leave his wife and children for her, that she wouldn't need to work, that he'd take care of her and her daughter. Hearing this made me physically ill. She'd been dealing with this for months without me knowing, just showing up to our D&D sessions as if nothing had changed. I felt awful because it was clear she wanted nothing to do with him, but she felt guilty for leading him on by simply being a nice person. Martha wanted out, but she loved our D&D group and didn't want to ruin it. I assured her that her comfort and safety were more important than the frickin' game. W friend! So she had a private conversation with the Dungeon Master. It might not have gone super well because shortly after I got 3 separate messages. One from the older gentleman, one from the younger man, one from Martha. The older gentleman asked if I'd stick by Martha's side. The younger man asked if everything was okay, which immediately had me worried. Then they both told me that the Dungeon Master had kicked Martha out of the group, calling her a slut and a whore to the rest of the party. Not only had he blocked her, but he went around lying to everyone, claiming she had been hitting on him, that he had to block her because she made him uncomfortable. I was livid. I immediately explained to the other party members what actually happened without going into unnecessary details, since I didn't want to spread anything without Martha's permission. W friend, what the hell? After that, I left the server, blocked the Dungeon Master, and never looked back. I couldn't believe a grown-ass adult had reacted to rejection like a hormonal teenager throwing a tantrum. It was wild. Bro, have you ever seen a grown-ass man react to a rejection? Because, like, this is 50% of them. I still keep in touch with some of the party members, but we haven't played together since. Most of them unfortunately stayed with the trash fire of a Dungeon Master. Oh, and a final note, the guy used ChatGPT to build his sessions. Zero creativity, zero imagination, just straight up AI generated campaigns. I made a whole video about AI generating campaigns, and if your players enjoy it, I can't stop you, but I do think you are doing yourself and your players disservice. It's like people who trace in order to learn how to draw. Like, yeah, you can, but you're gonna hit a roadblock and it's gonna suck. But yeah, the crux of the story is not the AI, it's the Dungeon Master's insane behavior. I mean, saying that he's gonna leave his wife and children for this person that he's only known online is crazy, but the fact is that there are absolutely people who act like that, who fall in love with somebody that they only passingly know, who confess undying devotion at the first date. It happens. It's happened to a friend of mine 4 separate times. God, some dudes are just really desperate freaks. I guess getting married doesn't help that either. Hey. That's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then you might enjoy this episode of Critical Failure. We covered the fall of Dice Camera Action. It's linked in the cards, but before you go, please leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment taking critique to let me know I made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.